Hello and welcome to another masterclass with the Modern Conducting Academy. I'm Dr. Jacqueline Normandy, the founder, and tonight we are here with Erin Guinup, who is going to give us the survival imperative, how we can reimagine what concerts can accomplish. With that, I'll turn it over to Erin.
Hi, I'm so delighted to be here. And this is a topic that I think is so very important because we all got into music because it means so much to us. We were so deeply impacted. And I'm sure you can think of those moments in your childhood or your youth where music really changed your life, and it continues to change our life. And yet, our art form is facing an existential crisis of sorts. It's very difficult to sustain organizations. There's budget cuts on every side because there's budget pressures across all sectors. It's a difficult time. And so being able to talk about why our art form is so important, I think is really critical, not just from an advocacy perspective, but how we can increase the impact of what we do. 50 years ago, we didn't have cell phones. We had boredom. Entertainment was a real need that we experienced. Now, when was the last time you were bored? Probably it's been a while because we have constant access to 24/7 Netflix, TikTok, podcasts, video games. We're just have so much coming at us that actually it's sometimes hard to even process all of that. So we don't often find ourselves going, wow, I'm bored and I need to go and attend a concert to fill that need. We also don't have the need to see the latest and greatest because we can YouTube those great choirs. So what is it that we're offering in our performances that is still compelling? So Cliff Notes version, what we do is still very important. We just have to describe it perhaps differently and reorient it to the needs of today. Um, and so as we go through today, we're going to talk about, my hope is that you're going to leave with a strategic framework that helps you identify the authentic community needs that the people in your community might benefit from, and how you can use your practice of choirs or other activities to meet those needs. I'm also going to strive to provide you with some concrete tools for redesigning your program to address those needs while maintaining high artistic standards. Um, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the legal clarity around the 501(c)(3) exempt purposes, which actually require us to take a broader community focus. And then we'll cover some change management strategies and some assessment methods for measuring and communicating your impact. So if that all sounds good, we'll get started. One thing, though, I want to say, most importantly, my goal of this conversation is as we challenge some of the long-standing assumptions and best practices that we've experienced, I want to be clear that this approach doesn't intend to compromise your artistic integrity. It directs your musical excellence towards creating the kind of transformative impact that makes arts organizations truly indispensable to our communities. So with that, we'll start with talking about the 501(c)(3) framework. Many of our organizations do enjoy 501(c)(3) status. And this, even though this may not be relevant in an education setting, there is relevance to that. So the 501(c)(3) IRS code, which allows a nonprofit to have tax exempt status, which saves about 20%, roughly, depending on what your revenue sources are looking for. Um, on your taxes. So that can be a pretty substantial benefit to the organization. And there are 8 exempt purposes: charitable, religious, educational, scientific, literary, testing for public safety, fostering amateur sports, and preventing cruelty to children and animals. Note what was not in that list. That list did not include anything about the arts. The charitable purposes includes relief of the poor, the distressed and underprivileged, advancement of education and science, lessening burdens of government, lessening neighborhood tensions, eliminating prejudice and discrimination, defending civil rights, and combating community deterioration. So there are a lot of ways in which arts programming can meet some of those needs. Especially education is a lot easy to see where music programming could fit into that space. But there is nothing in the 501c3 code that gives tax exempt status for pursuing artistic excellence. And that's really, really important, especially at a time when there are threats to maintaining 501 nonprofit status coming down. There is some expected regulations coming down that could challenge the ability for some organizations to maintain that 501c3 status. So making sure that our organizations align with what the law says is really valuable at this time. And again, I'm not a lawyer. I know we have a lawyer in the room, but so if you have legal questions, maybe Andrea can do that. But all I can say is I know looking at this code, many of our arts organizations could be seen as maybe not being as compliant as they could be with what that 501c3 code says. It does later in the code talk more about the arts, so there's definitely a provision for it, but wanting to make sure that we're in that primary description of exempt purposes is important. In that case, then entertainment alone makes a weak case for tax exempt status. So when we have the way that we describe our organizations is usually in a mission statement, and that mission statement is important to articulate how we are aligned with that exempt purpose. So, for example, we see a lot of organizations that have a mission statement that might say, to bring the joy of classical music to our community. And whereas something that might be stronger would be to strengthen community connections and reduce social isolation through accessible choral experiences. In that case, it's directly referencing one of those exempt purposes. And there's a lot of ways in which a mission can really guide the organization. I recently ended my tenure with Tacoma Refugee Choir, and we had a mission statement that took 10 seconds to sing. And we would often sing this at our staff meetings and our board meetings. And I'll just sing it just so that you have a reference. Creating spaces for authentic expression, interconnection, and healing through song and music. What's great about that, thank you, yes, voila. What's great about that is, first of all, funders thought it was so cool. Like, oh, you sing your mission statement. And if you're a choir and you have your choir of 40 singers singing your mission statement, what a message does that send to your community and those who are making this programming possible to hear how embedded that mission is. The other thing is then we would use that mission statement, creating spaces for authentic expression, interconnection, and healing through song and music. By that would serve as the framework for so many of the things that we would do, whether that's our evaluation process or our programming, making sure that we were hitting all three tiers of that mission statement. Now, I share that, and what I know now, I actually think that mission statement has room to even be improved based on what I'm learning now to be even more clear. But the clarity that we get from a mission statement when we hold on to it can save us a lot of heartache from mission drift and being clear about what our community promise is. So we'll go on to talk about strategy, because strategy is something that is talked about a lot in the business world. I got an MBA, by the way, a couple of years ago, and so that's really informed a lot of my framing around this work. So strategy is really what makes an organization unique. And there are a lot of thinkers in the business world that believe that an organization shouldn't exist unless it is providing something differentiated. So if we follow that kind of logic, then being clear about what we are offering not only helps us to stay clear on the law, but also helps the community understand why we should exist when there are so many other organizations that are serving those needs. One of my favorite strategic thinkers is a man named Alex M.H. Smith, and he has a formula for defining strategy. And that formula is X, we are the only X, which is the company type. So in this room, most of us would probably be choirs located in, I'm located in Tacoma. So we are the only choir in Tacoma who offers Y, which is the unique value to a customer by doing Z, the unique innovation in that category. So I'll say that one more time. We are the only X, which is a company type, who offers Y, a unique value to customer, by doing Z, unique innovation in the category. So, an example of what this might look like is an operational way of thinking would be we need to increase our season ticket sales by 15%. A strategic way of thinking is we are the only community choir who offers intergenerational healing, that's the X, or intergenerational healing experiences by combining professional musical excellence with trauma informed community practices. So being clear about who we are and uh, what value we're providing to the customer, and then how we're going to do it uniquely is really critical for not only strategy, but there's so many benefits that come both from an artistic and an operational perspective when there's absolute clarity on what we're trying to accomplish. So the way that I've been working with organizations on this is helping us shift from an art-centered mission to a community-centered mission. And truthfully, and I'm working, I have a strategic retreat this weekend, and I just got the pre-work back from the board earlier today. And a lot of them recognized, yeah, our organization is serving our artists. And that's kind of a profound thing to realize. Is our organization set up so that as artists we have an audience? Is that like so that we get to is that the so that a conductor gets to conduct a choir and gets to have these experiences? Is it set up so that we have a job? Right? Like that's maybe not the most justifiable 501(c)(3) exempt purpose, right? But we can still have a job and have a place to sing and have audiences and have an impact on the community that aligns. So it's we can do the things we want to do, but it has to be clear about what that purpose is supposed to be. Evidence of when we see this not working is, for example, if you hear the question, how do we get people to appreciate what we do? That often leads to campaigns about classical music. If we it has, you know, if we just teach them, then they will appreciate it. Um, and that results in if we build it, they will come mentality. If any of you have seen A Field of Dreams, you know, where he builds the baseball field in the middle of his cornfields, everyone thought he was crazy. And the only reason why that worked out for him is because he literally had angels on his side, right? And so if he had not had all of those like some extraordinary things happen, we love this idea if we build it they will come, but it can be a really hard sell long term and oftentimes leads to a lot of heartache. They would have lost their farm. That would have been a tough loss. So sometimes there's times for if we build it they will come, but not in terms of strategy. The other problem with this approach is it creates a defensive positioning when audiences don't respond. We're like, what's wrong with these people? Don't they realize what we offer is so great? Instead of thinking about what it is that we actually offer that they need. So the way that a community-centered approach would look like would be starting with the question, what does our community need?